Aircraft carriers are perhaps the truest representation of a nation's military power on the seas. They are both awe-inspiring and fear-inducing, perfect not only for projecting power, but also to serve as a symbol for an entire navy. With such a multitude of benefits, why does a country like Russia, whose military in many ways depends on shows of force, only have one? The Admiral Kuznetsov, the only carrier in the Russian fleet, is more like a heaping pile of outdated Soviet-era tech, especially when compared to the super-advanced Ford-class carriers the US is sending out to sea. So why doesn't Russia make new aircraft carriers? The Admiral Kuznetsov was originally commissioned by the Soviet Navy and was intended to be the lead of the two-ship Admiral Kuznetsov class. However, her sister ship Varyag was still incomplete when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, and the second unfinished hull which Ukraine ended up with was eventually sold to China. On its deployments to Syria, the Admiral Kuznetsov has experienced engine problems, maintenance issues, and even an incident on the flight deck that caused the loss of 2 aircraft. This may not sound like a lot when you're used to seeing the filled decks of American Nimitz-class aircraft carriers, which have an accommodation of 85 to 90 aircraft, but the Admiral Kuznetsov can only carry a measly 26 aircraft. Further tainting the image of the Kuznetsov is the characteristic heavy black smoke, also called mazout, which leaves a trail of pollution in its path. Such heavy pollution would not occur in the fleets of nations with higher environmental standards, and this serves as a further sign of the poor state of the Russian Navy. Living standards on the ship are also notoriously poor, with reports suggesting that fans don't work, so it can get brutally hot. Then when it's cold, the heating is regularly out of commission, and that even running water is often an issue for many sailors on board. With propaganda at the forefront of Russia's strategy to gain the support of its people and intimidate the enemies, reports like these aren't doing them any favors. Further exacerbating the issue is the recent and disastrous conflict in Ukraine. The Russian military has, in recent years, been touted as a revamped and deadly force even by most Western analysts. The poor performance of Russian ground forces may have come as a surprise, but the vulnerability of the Russian fleet against an outgunned and ill-equipped foe like Ukraine came as a shock to nearly everyone. The burning of the Orsk, a large Russian landing ship in the port near Berdyansk, indicated that the fleet was not as invulnerable as previously thought. After that, matters went from bad to worse for the Russian propaganda machine when the missile cruiser Moskva was hit by Ukrainian missiles. News of the event quickly spread, and Russia attempted to tow the ship into port in a desperate attempt to salvage it, but she eventually succumbed to her wounds and sank to the bottom of the Black Sea. The sinking of the Moskva was a huge morale hit to Russian forces, especially the Navy, and an even further blunder for Russian propaganda. With their prized warship sunk, who would take the reins as the new centerpiece for Russian naval power? How about their flagship aircraft carrier? Well, there's just one problem with that. As of July 2021, Admiral Kuznetsov is out of service for a refit in Murmansk. In November 2018, it was damaged by a falling 70-ton crane from a floating dry dock and a fire that killed 2 during the refit. The dry dock, which sank due to a power outage while holding Admiral Kuznetsov, was vital to repairing the carrier, which is not expected to re-enter service until later in 2022 at the earliest. In 2021, the Vice President of the United Shipbuilding Corporation, Vladimir Korolov, told the TASS news agency that the vessel was expected to begin post-repair sea trials in mid-2023 and rejoin the fleet later that year, although this may be pushed back a year or more due to delays. If Russia is the powerful and technologically advanced power it claims to be, why has it failed to invest in replacements for the Admiral Kuznetsov? There are a few factors that play into this. The first is that Russian access to warm water ports is extremely limited, so their shipbuilding infrastructure has never been quite to scale of someone like the United States, with a huge variety of these ports. Secondly, Russia may be the world's largest country by land, but it is not the most economically prosperous by a long shot. In fact, the Russian economy is comparable in scale and performance to the US state of Texas. With such a limited economy to tax and make use of its industry, Russian military development must be carefully appropriated. From the slow progress of their 5th-generation fighter program to the poor armament and logistics of its regular forces, there's clear evidence that Russia has been negligent of certain programs. The cost of carrier building is immense, and Russia simply did not have the resources to build a new carrier fleet while also modernizing much of its ground and air forces. Recent events, however, may change the priorities in Moscow. Adding to future Russian woes are the immense sanctions placed on them by the West. Not only will their economy and GDP suffer, but their access to foreign technology and scientific resources will seriously degrade their ability to make quick progress in any new developments. So for now, because they have no other options, the Admiral Kuznetsov will limp on through the 21st century with its thick smoke and broken life support systems.